If you think that that framing is not that interesting, wait till you hear that this record-breaking young phenom from New Jersey is 38 years old. Where are you going? Literally just walking away like that. Mr. President, I'm sorry. The tribe has spoken.
For years, Jon Stewart was more than just a comedian. He was a political institution. For a generation of liberals, he was the trusted voice in the wilderness, the man who used razor-sharp satire to dismantle the absurdities of the powerful, especially during the Bush administration. His anchor desk on The Daily Show wasn't just a set, it was a sanctuary of sanity in a world that seemed to be losing its mind. So when it was announced that the king was returning to his throne, even for just one night a week, a wave of relief and anticipation swept across his fan base. They saw him as the hero returning at the 11th hour, ready to pick up his sword and defend their side in the looming battle of the 2024 election. They eagerly awaited a fiery takedown of Donald Trump, a rallying cry for the Democratic cause. But when the cameras finally rolled on that first night back, the cheers in the studio audience quickly morphed into a stunned, uncomfortable silence. The hero they were waiting for had aimed his fire at a target no one saw coming: everyone.
Before Trump won the election, Democrats were clear-eyed about the stakes.
It's time that fascism is called fascism, and Americans know exactly what they're voting for.
He is paving the way to become a Vladimir Putin.
He is a threat to democracy.
He is a clear and present danger to our democracy, to our way of life.
The damage may be irreversible. The destruction could be unthinkable. And it would be a betrayal of everything that our framers fought for.
He didn't pull a single punch. He refused to pick a side. In a breathtakingly defiant opening monologue, Stewart came for the entire political establishment. He looked America directly in the eye and called the 2024 election precisely what he saw it as: a terrifyingly uninspiring choice between two old men. With brutal efficiency, he roasted Donald Trump's endless stream of legal troubles and incoherent ramblings, describing the experience of covering him as trying to drink from a fire hose of nonsense. But then, without missing a beat, he turned that same critical lens on Joe Biden. He masterfully cut together a montage of the president's own verbal stumbles and awkward gaffes, ruthlessly undermining the official Democratic talking point that Biden was as sharp and vigorous as ever. He wasn't just making jokes, he was revealing a fundamental truth that many Americans felt, but that almost no one in mainstream media dared to say out loud: that neither candidate truly inspired confidence, and that the country was being forced to choose between two deeply flawed options. For an audience expecting a partisan pep rally, it was a bucket of ice water to the face, and that was just his opening shot.
You're not even gonna look up? You're not even gonna... You know, a little eye contact, a little inflection could drive the danger thing. You give it a little urgency.
We're proud of the fact that we've defeated more House Republican incumbents than they've defeated House Democratic incumbents.
We did flip 3 House seats from Republican to Democrat and gained back almost all of those that we had lost in 2022.
From there, Stewart turned his focused scorn onto the Democratic Party's habit of desperately celebrating mediocrity, a tendency he found so absurd he created a brand new segment for it: The Audacity of Cope. He played a clip of Representative Dan Goldman trying to spin a recent election result, bragging that the party had gained back almost all of the seats they had previously lost. Stewart let the word almost hang in the air, mocking it as a load-bearing adverb doing all the heavy lifting in a sentence that was clearly trying to paint a loss as a victory. He then took aim at the party's frantic attempts to manufacture excitement out of thin air, highlighting their celebration of electing the record-breaking young phenom to Congress from New Jersey. After a dramatic pause, he delivered the punchline with savage precision. This revolutionary young force was 38 years old. The joke landed so hard because it wasn't just about her age. It was a brutal expose of a party so starved for good news, so devoid of real momentum, that they were reduced to framing something utterly mundane as historic. Stewart was showing his audience that the party wasn't just losing battles, they were losing touch with reality itself, handing out participation trophies and praying no one noticed. But the reaction that followed would prove to be far more shocking and revealing than any of his on-air punchlines.
Almost is doing a lot of work in that sentence. Yeah, we almost gained back all we had lost. Almost is kind of a load-bearing adverb. Spin-wise, finding a positive in what is clearly not good news. It's a new dynamic. It is a willful bright-siding this shit show that we celebrate in our new segment called The Audacity of Cope. Now,
the internet absolutely exploded. It felt as though, almost overnight, a significant and vocal portion of Jon Stewart's most loyal, long-time fan base turned on him with a fury that was breathtaking to witness. Social media platforms, particularly X, became a raging dumpster fire of betrayal and outrage. He was no longer a hero. He was a traitor, a cynic, a coward, and a nihilist. Prominent liberal commentators and blue-check journalists wrote scathing think pieces, accusing him of platforming a dangerous both-sidesism. The core of their argument was terrifyingly simple. In a high-stakes election against a figure like Donald Trump, any criticism of Joe Biden, no matter how valid, was a gift to the other side. They argued that his jokes would depress voter turnout, push undecideds away, and ultimately pave the way for a second Trump presidency. To them, Stewart hadn't just made a few bad jokes. He had abdicated his moral responsibility and committed the ultimate sin in a deeply polarized political climate. The man they once counted on to save them had, in their eyes, just stabbed them in the back.
This freshman class alone, and I'm going to stop for cheers for each one of these because they're remarkable. We have our first trans member of Congress. We have an engineer from an immigrant community in the San Fernando Valley. We have the first Iranian American Democrat in Congress. We have the youngest member ever elected to the House from New Jersey.
But if this digital mob of his former fans expected a chastened Jon Stewart to appear the following week with a tail between his legs apology, they had clearly forgotten who they were dealing with. He didn't just ignore the criticism, he walked directly into the fire. Looking straight into the camera with a defiant smirk, he openly mocked the tidal wave of backlash. He bluntly addressed the accusations that he was helping Trump, firing back with a devastating rhetorical question. If your guy's whole campaign is that the other guy is a threat to democracy, and your argument is you need to shut up and not criticize our guy, then you've got a much bigger problem on your hands. He refused to back down, declaring that his job was never to be a partisan cheerleader or a political activist. His loyalty, he explained, wasn't to a party or a tribe, but to the relentless pursuit of calling out hypocrisy, corruption, and absurdity, no matter where he found it. It was a stunning and unapologetic clapback, a moment that drew a bold new line in the sand. Jon Stewart wasn't just reasserting his independence, he was waging war on the very idea that a commentator's job is to make their audience feel comfortable and validated. He was there to make them think, even if the truth hurt.
if you think that that framing is not that interesting, wait till you hear that this record-breaking young phenom from New Jersey is 38 years old. How will the head of their party, the outgoing president, man the ramparts during this challenging and fraught peaceful transition to fascism?
President Biden is in Brazil, where he became the first American head of state to visit the Amazon rainforest.
And this incredible firestorm he created managed to inadvertently expose a much bigger unspoken problem for the Democratic Party, a simmering crisis that centers squarely on Vice President Kamala Harris. With every public conversation about President Biden's age, stamina, and political fitness, the spotlight inevitably swings to his designated successor. But the party's core weaknesses, which Stewart had just so ruthlessly and publicly exposed, have trapped her in a politically impossible position. Her own persistently low approval ratings aren't just a personal failure, they are a direct symptom of a party that, as Stewart pointed out, seems to lack a clear, compelling vision for the future. They struggle to message effectively, often falling back on symbolic gestures and identity-based talking points instead of concrete plans that resonate with everyday Americans. This leaves their supposed successor struggling to gain meaningful traction. Kamala Harris is caught in a political vice. She cannot publicly distance herself from a historically unpopular president without seeming disloyal, but her close association with his administration directly ties her to its failures in the eyes of many voters. The quiet panic within the party isn't just about Biden's ability to win in 2024. It's about the terrifying lack of a convincing and popular plan B. Then, as if the universe itself decided to provide a perfect, almost poetic visual metaphor for Jon Stewart's entire critique, a truly bizarre scene unfolded thousands of miles from Washington, D.C. While his party was scrambling to do damage control from the Stewart monologue, President Biden was on a diplomatic trip to the Amazon rainforest. In a moment that was clipped and shared across the internet within minutes, he was seen on camera aimlessly wandering away from his security detail and the other world leaders, looking momentarily confused and lost in the dense jungle. His supporters and the White House press team tried to downplay it as a meaningless, out-of-context moment, but the image was simply too powerful to ignore. It was a living, breathing metaphor for the very concerns about leadership that Stewart had just raised on national television. It provided visceral, visual proof that contradicted the official narrative of a sharp and vigorous leader. Here was the commander-in-chief appearing unfocused and adrift on the world stage, leaving his party and indeed the country to grapple with the uncomfortable question of who exactly was running the show. In the end, Jon Stewart's explosive return to The Daily Show was never just about roasting Democrats or cracking jokes about politicians. It was a seismic event that held up a giant, unflattering mirror to a broken political system and, more importantly, to the partisan audiences that enable it. He didn't just attack the players, he attacked the game itself. He exposed the profound fragility of both major parties and ruthlessly challenged the toxic tribalism that increasingly demands unwavering loyalty over critical, independent thought. He threw a stone into the placid waters of the political echo chambers, and the ripples are still being felt. The fallout from his monologue has forced everyone, from pundits to ordinary voters, to ask a series of deeply uncomfortable questions. Is it better to blindly support a flawed champion for your cause in the name of unity? Or is there more value in an honest critic who risks costing you the entire fight? Jon Stewart's return has left America with one final haunting question. Is he a cynical traitor who has lost his way? Or is he the only one brave enough to tell a painful truth that absolutely no one wants to hear?